You finally get your baby down, you tiptoe out like you are in a spy movie, you sit on the couch and you think, I have 30 whole minutes to be a person. And then your baby wakes up 30 to 60 minutes after bedtime like, hey, I heard you exhale. If that is your nightly routine, you are not failing. You are not doing bedtime wrong. You are dealing with a super common pattern called a false start, and once you know what causes it, it gets so much easier to fix. Hi, I'm Treasure, and I help exhausted, overthinking parents make baby sleep feel clear and doable without the guilt and without the chaos. Here is the first calming truth I want you to hold on to. A false start is usually not your baby waking up for the night. It is your baby slipping into a lighter part of sleep and realizing the setup is not quite right yet. By the way, download my free guide, The Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap, the guide I wish I had at 2 in the morning. The link is in the video description and on the screen. Let's start with what's really driving this. Most false starts come from one of 3 buckets, and they all feel identical when you are exhausted, which is honestly rude. The first bucket is bedtime timing that is a little off, usually overtired, sometimes undertired. Overtired is the sneaky one because parents are often told, keep them up longer and they will crash harder. And then you do that and your baby's nervous system says, actually no, we are going to do a short nap, then wake up angry, then party. When a baby is overtired, bedtime sleep can be fragile. They fall asleep, but their body is still on, and that first stretch breaks apart. An undertired can also cause a false start, especially when the last nap ran late, or your baby had an accidental mini nap in the car and it quietly stole their sleep pressure. The second bucket is a mismatch between how your baby fell asleep and what they experience when they partially wake. This is the sleep association piece, and I want to say it with so much gentleness. This is not your fault. You did what worked to survive. If your baby fell asleep while feeding, rocking, bouncing, or with a very specific set of conditions, their brain can look for that exact same recipe when they hit that first light moment of sleep. That does not mean your baby is manipulative. It means your baby is learning patterns, and you are allowed to shape those patterns without feeling like a villain. The third bucket is sensory or environment friction. This is when the room is just different enough at 30 to 60 minutes that it wakes them. A little light leak, a temperature shift, the white noise is too quiet once the house settles, the baby monitor clicks, the swaddle or sleep sack is rubbing, the pacifier fell out, something tiny is poking the system. And if your baby is more sensory sensitive, you might see these false starts happen more often because their body notices more. Now let's talk about what it looks like in real life. If your baby wakes up furious, hard crying, and seems almost impossible to settle, that usually leans overtired or overstimulated. If your baby wakes up wide-eyed, smiling, chatting, or doing gymnastics in the crib, that usually leans undertired or that last nap was too close to bedtime. If your baby wakes up calm but can only go back down with the exact same thing they had at bedtime, that leans sleep association. If your baby wakes up and settles easily once you adjust the room or do a quick check, that leans environment friction. There are a few common patterns that create this exact problem. One big pattern is the bedtime routine is doing too much, for too long, or too close to bedtime. I know you are trying to do the sweetest, most calming wind down because you love your baby and you want it to work. But if bedtime turns into an hour of activity, even calm activity, some babies get a second wind. Others get overtired during the routine itself, and bedtime becomes the overtired crash. Another pattern is the last wake stretch is just a little too long for your baby right now. Not dramatically wrong, just enough that the first stretch of night sleep breaks. And the last pattern is the transfer. If your baby falls asleep on you and then is placed down, that change of sensation can be fine at bedtime but show up as a false start when sleep lightens. This is especially common in the 4-month season and beyond, when sleep cycles mature and babies wake more easily between cycles. Now let's talk about what helps starting tonight. I'm going to give you the fewest moves plan because you do not need 12 new rules. You need 1 to 3 targeted changes that stop the loop. Start with bedtime timing because it is the fastest lever. If false starts come with intense crying and your baby seems exhausted, test an earlier bedtime for a few nights. Earlier does not mean wildly early. It means you stop trying to stretch the day and you protect that last wake window from getting too long. Sometimes the most powerful move is simply moving the whole bedtime routine up a little so your baby is falling asleep before their body flips into that wired, overtired mode. If false starts come with happy wide eyes, test a slightly later bedtime or protect the last nap so it ends with enough time before bed. And if daycare naps are unpredictable or you are doing this solo and evenings are a blur, give yourself permission to use a tiny bridge nap. A short, controlled cat nap in the late afternoon can prevent that overtired crash without stealing the whole night. Now let's tighten the bedtime recipe without turning it into a rigid performance. Keep the wind down short, calm, and predictable. Aim for the same order of steps, the same sleep cue, and the same ending so your baby's brain starts to recognize this is the path into night sleep. If feeding is part of bedtime, that is totally fine, but try to separate the moment of falling asleep from the final sips when you can. That might look like a full feed, then a burp, then the last calming steps, then into bed. Not perfect, not dramatic, just enough separation that your baby does not need the feed as the only door into sleep. And if your baby takes a pacifier, decide if you are going to be the pacifier replacement service all night or if you want a plan to reduce that dependence. Some families keep it and help baby learn to find it. Some families phase it out. Either can work, but the middle zone is where false starts love to live. Let me show you the smallest changes that make the biggest difference. One of my favorite false start fixes is what I call boring consistency for the first wake. If your baby wakes at that 30 to 60 minute mark, you respond in the simplest, calmest way with the least amount of stimulation, and you try to keep the response similar each night. Dim lights stay dim, voices stay low. No bright screens, no extra play. If you and your partner are both home, decide who handles that first false start so the response is consistent. And if you are doing this alone, keep it as easy as possible on you. The goal is not to be a superhero. The goal is to stop accidentally turning that first wake into a bonus event. Now, here is the part most parents miss. If you settle your baby all the way back to a deep sleep every time, you can unintentionally teach their brain, I need help at this exact point in the night. So when it fits your baby and your comfort level, let the last step be your baby drifting off in the sleep space, not fully asleep in your arms. That might mean you soothe in the crib. It might mean you soothe, then place down drowsy, then offer a hand on the chest. It might mean you do a brief check, then pause for a moment, then help. You are not ignoring your baby. You are helping your baby practice a skill in a calm, supported way. So okay, let's talk about the room because sometimes the fix is embarrassingly simple. Make the room darker than you think, especially around bedtime. Make the white noise steady and loud enough to cover household sounds once the house quiets down. Check temperature because many babies wake when they cool off after that first sleep drop. And check clothing and sleep gear fit because discomfort often shows up as that one predictable wake. Here's the insight that usually changes everything. False starts are often your baby telling you bedtime is close, but not quite locked in yet. So the goal is not to wear them out. The goal is to line up timing, cues, and the environment so that first cycle connects smoothly into the next one. And here is when I'd stop guessing and get extra support. If false starts have been happening for weeks, your baby is waking more and more overnight, and you feel like you have tried everything, it is usually because there are two patterns stacked together, like timing plus sleep associations, or daycare plus overtired, or sensory friction, plus a schedule that is just barely off. That is exactly the kind of puzzle I help families solve. I have a master's in social work. I'm a certified pediatric sleep consultant, and I'm the founder and CEO of Rested and Renewed Pediatric Sleep Consulting. And as a toddler mom, I know how personal bedtime feels when you have worked all day and you just want one normal evening. If you want a plan tailored to your baby and your real schedule, you can book a consultation with me through Rested and Renewed, and we will get you out of this false start loop with a calm, doable approach. And if you are not ready to book, start with my free Modern Parent Sleep Roadmap. It is in the video description and on the screen. Now, let's close the loop with a quick reality check that will save you so much stress. When you make a bedtime timing change, give it a few nights. Your baby's body needs repetition to settle into a new rhythm. If you change bedtime every single night based on fear, you never get clean information and you stay stuck in the guessing spiral. So pick the adjustment that best matches your baby's false start vibe, earlier for the angry wired wake, later for the wide-eyed party wake, and make the rest of bedtime boring and predictable. Even if you still get awake, watch what happens to the intensity and how quickly your baby resettles. That tells you are moving in the right direction. And if your gut is telling you something feels off medically, trust that. If your baby has a fever, vomiting, breathing trouble, signs of significant pain, feeding concerns, or you are worried about weight gain, contact your pediatrician. Sleep should not feel like your baby is suffering. It should feel like a pattern you can influence. If this already made bedtime feel less mysterious, the next video is where everything starts to click, because you will finally see the hidden pattern that keeps pulling sleep apart even when you are doing everything right. Tap the screen to watch my next video.
Don't forget, download the guide, subscribe for more clarity, and tap this screen. Trust me on this one.